Hello folks, how you doing? Today we're going to tie a Bucktail Deceiver. So it's a very simple fly, but it can be a bit tricky in terms of proportion and taper. So I use this one for perch and zander, and also pike if I need to downsize to a smaller fly. But obviously it originated from the saltwater fly fishing side of things as a bass fly. So without me talking too much, let's start tying. So in the vise we've got a Ahrex XO 774 universal curved, and that's a size 1. So you can use whatever size you like. I use 1s, 2s, and go quite big as well on some flies, so 1/0s, 2/0s, depends on what I'm tying. These are flies I'm tying for zander and big perch. So thread we're going to be using, well, you can use whatever you want. I mean, a lot of people use mono when tying with bucktail. I prefer GSP, but I do wax it, so it gives me a bit more grip. So just put a thread base down. This is GSP 100 for these small ones. If I'm tying a bigger fly, I tend to step up to 150. So it's very simple in terms of materials. We just need bucktail in different colours, and I'm tying a chartreuse and white, a little bit of olive on the head as well. So what I look for in bucktail is I'm not really after length so much for these small ones. I'm after bucktail that has a bit of natural curl to it. I mean, it's quite difficult to see, maybe you can see it here, but it's got a, it looks quite fuzzy in a way. It's got lots of curl in there, and that just adds to the movement when it's in the water. But I'm not looking for fibres that are too I'm looking for fibres that have, are slightly hollow that I can work with. If they're too stiff, they're really difficult to work with, and when they're stiff means they're not very hollow. So you look, I mean, your tail is completely different in terms of what you can use. I mean, down to the bottom end here, if you're not used to using bucktail, it tends to be the hollower fibres, and the further up you go, the less hollow they are, so they don't flare as much. Now, I'm not looking to flare this fly so much, I'm just looking to build the taper into that baitfish profile. So we'll start off with some white. I'm not looking for long ones initially on the tail, because I'm going to go longer over the top. So I'm just looking for a small amount. It's very difficult to explain how much I'm using here, but hopefully you'll get an idea as I'm tying. So I just need to taper that bucktail, get rid of any long ones. We don't want it all straight. We want some different lengths within the taper itself. And I'm literally going to lay that on top. So I'm going to cut a little bit off that because I've tapered it. So I'm just going to put 3 or 4 wraps over the top and just use my thumb to push that round like that, and then tie those ends down, make it nice and neat. Like so. Now what I tend to do between wraps, I mean, you can use Zappa Gap, super glue. I'm sick of explaining it. I can't use it because I'm allergic to it, so I used liquid fusion, which is a polyurethane glue, and it doesn't cause issues with my eyes. So yeah, but one advantage of liquid fusion is that it doesn't set straight away, and it soaks into the material as well. So you don't have to wait for it to dry before you can start tying. So next we're going to add some more white. Now I'm looking for the longest I've got here. So we're talking probably about 4 inches. I mean, this is about 4.5 inch fly. So I'm looking for the longest ones, and the longest ones typically are at the base of the tail. Now I'm tying this fly cold as well, so it takes me a little bit of time to, really need to sort of tie a few of them to get warmed up, and then you become quicker at tying them. I haven't tied this one for a week or 2, so you'll have to bear with me. So I'm just arranging the bucktail. It's always worth checking your bucktail before you tie it in. You know, make sure it's how you want it. So I want this one longer than the first one. Take off the ends. I'm going to tie that down. Now you could cut at an angle before you tie down. I never bother. It doesn't really make much difference. I quite like it cut flush. Just give me something to tie down then. I find if you cut at an angle, very often you make a mistake and you lose a few of the hairs. Now we're going to do the underside. Now, have you ever tied a 3D fillet, which is a Bob Popovics Fleye that's within his book called Fleye Designs? I'm sort of following a similar theme here with the way I'm tying in the bucktail, so shorter on bottom, longer on top, just to achieve that baitfish profile. So underneath, don't want it as long as a tail. I want it slightly shorter. I'm going to tie that on top, a few loose wraps, and just use my thumb just to spread it round. So it goes all the way around the bottom half of the fly. So it doesn't have to be level with the top one. Now for a bit of added sparkle, I mean, you've got a few options here. You could use angel hair or wing and flash. I quite like a few strands of polar fibre through it. It's not, you know, I find polar fibre quite durable, whereas polar flash tends to break off quite easily. I mean, I use that as well, but one advantage of using polar fibre, and if you want to cut the flash out quickly, if you find the flash is putting the fish off, you only put a few strands in, you can, you know, do it on the riverbank or the lake or wherever you're fishing. So I'm just going to tie a few in there. Tie that down. So I need to make room. I've got another three stacks to do in there. So that's some glue to this. So next I'm going to be using, it's like a fluorescent yellow. So again, I'm taking bucktail from, you know, a fairly hollowish bucktail, but not too hollow, so it's uncontrollable. Sort of, you know, around the midsection, but every tail is different, so you really just need to look at your tails to see where you think is best. It's very difficult to teach bucktail tying because there's lots of variation in the tails, and you know, it's not like synthetics where it's quite consistent with, you know, shape and colours, texture. Bucktail is very different, so it's, you know, it's quite difficult to teach. So this one, I don't want it as long as the white, but I want it fairly long, so I'm creating a wing on this fly. It sort of helps it swim properly with hook, you know, hook facing down. So again, I'm just going to tie that down. Just going to use my thumb just to spread it around the top part, like that. Again, we're going to come in for some white underneath. Now, as I get closer to the eye, I tend to work my way down the tail, depending on, you know, what bucktail I'm using, because I want the materials to flay a little bit more as I'm getting lower down. So I'm still using quite a sparse amount, and I tend to build up that amount as I get closer to the head. And there's lots of different ways you can tie these flies, and it's really up to you how you do it. I'm just going to show you my way, which, you know, it's not my way, it's Bob Popovics' way in a way, with some slight tweaks, some things that I've learned from the 3D. Okay, we're going to tie that down. Just use our thumb to spread it. Like that. Let's add some glue. Yeah, a little bit more flash over the top. Not much, I don't think you need much in these flies, but it's up to you. You can turn it into a flashy fly. I'm tying flash the unconventional way. A lot of people tend to wrap it around their thread, bring it over. I could never ever get the hang of doing that, so I'm doing it the way I know way. There's no right or wrong way, you do it whatever feels comfortable. So next we're going to use some chartreuse, although it's more lime I'd say than chartreuse. And as I'm getting close to the head, I'm sort of working my way down the bucktail. So again, I'm looking for fibres that have some crinkle to them. There's a little bit more air in these. So again, I'm just taking the under fibres out, and I'm just not matching up the ends, but I want the taper, a natural taper in the end. The fly looks good. So again, we're going to come shorter than the previous tie-in, just to build that baitfish profile. Now, it looks a bit wild when I'm tying it, but once you soak it in water, it starts creating that nice shape, if you've got your proportions correct. Like that. Again, we're going to come in with the white underneath. Again, I'm looking for slightly thicker fibres, a little bit more dense as I get closer. Just creates that nice head. We don't want much here. Like that. Use your thumb to spread it round. Probably a bit more than you would do as you were towards the back of the fly, because we just want to build a bit of a head shape. Tie that down like so. Like that. Now, finishing the head, you can do so many different things with this. You don't have to use bucktail, you can use naiads, you can use craft fur. You can really use anything you want. For these small ones, I just like to just keep using bucktail because it does finish it off quite nice, and it just makes it a little bit quicker. And plus, you haven't got anything over the bucktail, so you're getting all that lovely movement without it being restricted by another material. So I'm just going to come with some olive to finish it off. Now, in terms of tying this in at the end, I mean, I've done various things over the years. Bigger flies, I've created a slight bulkhead, reverse bulkhead here. With this one, I'm just going to keep it pretty straightforward. I'm just going to build a head exactly the same way as I've tied the other bucktail in. And we're going to tie that at a slight angle, so it grabs. You can have a few ends that are going to be difficult to manage in here, but what I forgot to put down was a little bit of glue, but I'm fishing these flies, so it doesn't matter. And the last one, I'm going to come in with one more white, quite a healthy amount, because we're going to be using really only the tips. And if you can get a super short bucktail, so that for these for the under part of the flies, that would be a real advantage because you'll get more air in there. So I'm going to come in for a very small amount on this one. I'm going to tie that in, so it's locked in. This is where it gets tricky, and sometimes it helps to reverse, do a little hollow tie at the head here just to clean it up, but I'm making it difficult for myself today. You can always come in with a lighter and just burn those ends off, or zap them. I haven't got time for that. This is a fishing fly. you go, and wet finish. Super quick. So it looks wild at the moment. Just bear in mind that it's going to see water, but you can get the general shape. It looks like a baitfish. Right, for eyes we're going to use 6mm flat eyes. I like flat eyes on these flies because I don't really want to add too much weight to them. 3D eyes add a bit more weight, and also they're not as durable as the flat eyes, especially when you coat them. Hopefully there'll be more to market soon. I keep going on to various companies to say, can you stock more flat eyes, but it's very difficult sometimes. They don't, they can't get them. We'll have to get them made somewhere. So I'm just putting some glue around the whole fly. And this is serious glue made by Evostick, which is, I find, really, really good, but quite difficult to get hold of. So I'm just going to put those eyes on. I'll just do on the other side. Like so. What I tend to do this now is I'll give it 5 minutes, and I come back to them and I just straighten it out because that glue still isn't set and it gives you some time to manipulate it. Now to finish the fly, before I put glue over the eyes, just need to make sure they're all straight, which they are. Now I just like to colour in the top. This is one of the reasons I put glue all the way around. If you don't put glue all the way around, you'll find that the marker will bleed into the whites and go all the way around. So I just add a little bit on the top, just to darken it. Just finishes off the fly nicely then, like so. And if you've got any loose ends, as I said before, just get a lighter and just gently just flash the flame right in front of that, or use one of those zappy tools. Now I use Gorilla Glue Clear, crystal clear. I did use UV resin, but I'm finding I'm getting allergic to that, which is a real problem at the moment. So I've moved over to black glue, which is a very slow cure, which I find doesn't impact me, and also gives a very, very good finish. Just you've got to be very careful with it because you can get tiny air bubbles, like you do with 5-minute epoxy. So try not to mix it and spread it around too much. I do occasionally have a problem with flies where I get air bubbles, and I've got a heat gun to try and remove them, but it is quite tricky. So just be aware of that if you ever use this stuff. What I like to do is just to add a little bit onto a piece of scrap paper or cardboard, just a dollop, and take your worst dubbing needle, which is my best because I've left my other one in the other room, and what I tend to do is just take the fly out of here. It's quite a difficult one to show you, so I'm just going to take a small amount. I'm going to go over the eyes first. I don't know how well you can see this, but I'm just going to go over the eyes, and I'm going to go past the eyes onto the bucktail as well, because we don't want any teeth getting underneath those eyes and rip them off. That's probably not the best angle to show you, but I just wanted to show you quick because I don't often show finishing flies in these videos. So what I'm going to do is just turn this round. So you want to keep moving the fly because it's fairly runny, but it doesn't run too fast. Okay, I want to come past the eyes, just onto the bucktail. I want some on top and underneath. This will soak in as there's some slight shrinkage. That's a tongue twister. So put a bit more than what you think you need in there, because that will soak into the bucktail, but it creates a real strong head. It's quite durable stuff, this stuff. It gives you a real nice shiny finish to a fly. It's more flexible than flexible UV resins, which is the result. There you go, so just touch up. And that's all it takes. That's all you need to do. But what you do need a fly spinner. One of these, this is a cheapish one, but it does the job for me. So I just put that in there and I leave that on the wheel for half an hour. That's all it needs, and that'll give the head a nice even coat all the way around. So there we go, that's the fly. Nice and quick. Once you've tied a few, they take no more than 10 minutes. Definitely worth having in your box. It's a classic fly. It's a great Popovics Fleye, which obviously was originally inspired by the Lefty Deceiver. Which, the only difference of that is obviously there's a bit more bucktail in that fly. With the Lefty, it's mostly feathers in the tail, some bucktail on the head. Both great flies. Anyway, it's worth a tie, and I'll catch you on the next video. Cheerio!